Ma'am, get on the ground now. The command cut through the evening air so sharply that conversations around the gas station stopped mid-sentence. For a moment, even the steady hum of traffic beyond the highway seemed to fade. Angela Brooks stood beside pump number 6, one hand resting on the fuel nozzle, the other holding her phone. The glow from the overhead canopy lights reflected across the dark paint of her SUV and cast pale silver highlights across the pavement below. She blinked once, confused more than frightened, as two police cruisers rolled to a stop near the edge of the lot. Red and blue lights flashed across the windows of the convenience store, turning ordinary faces into shifting colors. "Officer, is there a problem?" Angela asked calmly. Her voice never rose. It never shook. Around her, customers paused with coffee cups in hand. A truck driver leaned against his pickup. A teenage cashier pressed closer to the glass doors to see what was happening outside. Officer Ryan Walker stepped forward with the confidence of a man who believed he already knew the answer to every question. His flashlight swept briefly across Angela's face before lowering. "Step away from the vehicle," he said. Angela looked toward the SUV, then back at him. "This is my vehicle." Ryan's jaw tightened. "I said step away from it." The evening sky stretched dark blue above the station, the last traces of sunset fading behind distant trees. Angela slowly complied, taking several measured steps backward. She wore a simple navy sweater, dark jeans, and comfortable travel shoes. Nothing about her appearance seemed unusual. Nothing suggested urgency or danger. Yet every movement she made was being watched. A woman near the air pump quietly raised her phone and began recording. Across the lot, another customer did the same. Angela noticed, but said nothing. She simply folded her hands in front of her and waited. "Registration," Ryan demanded. Angela nodded. "It's in my purse on the passenger seat." Ryan exchanged a glance with the second officer. "Stay where you are." The flashlight beam swept across the SUV again. The vehicle looked expensive, polished, and well-maintained. Ryan's expression hardened further. Angela recognized the look. She had seen it before. Assumptions arriving before facts. Judgments appearing before questions. Still, she refused to let frustration reach her face. The smell of gasoline mixed with the scent of fresh rain drifting from somewhere beyond the highway. The station lights buzzed softly overhead. Time seemed to slow. "Someone reported this vehicle," Ryan finally said. "Reported it?" Angela asked. "As stolen." A ripple moved through the small crowd. Angela stared at him for a second, then glanced toward the SUV. "That's impossible. That's what we're here to determine." Angela exhaled quietly. Her wedding ring caught the light as she adjusted a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Officer, if you check the registration, you'll see everything matches." Ryan didn't respond immediately. Instead, he continued studying her face. Angela could feel dozens of eyes watching every second unfold. Somewhere behind her, a child asked his father what was happening. The father didn't answer. The convenience store doors opened with a soft electronic chime. More people stepped outside. The crowd grew. Angela's phone vibrated once in her hand. A message appeared briefly across the screen before fading. She glanced down only long enough to read 3 words. "Travel safe, Angie." A faint smile touched her lips. Ryan noticed. "What's so funny?" he asked. Angela locked her phone and slipped it into her pocket. "Nothing." Then she looked directly at him, calm and composed despite the flashing lights surrounding her. "My husband warned me something like this might happen someday." Ryan gave a short laugh. "Yeah." Angela nodded. "He did." The officer folded his arms. "And who exactly is your husband?" For the first time all evening, Angela's eyes drifted toward the dark horizon beyond the gas station. Her expression remained unreadable. "That," she said quietly, "isn't important right now." Officer Ryan Walker did not realize it, but the woman standing beneath the gas station lights had spent most of her life learning how to remain calm when other people rushed to conclusions. Angela Brooks was 38 years old, and patience had become part of who she was long before she ever met her husband. 5 hours earlier, she had been driving east along Interstate 40 with soft jazz playing through the speakers and a travel mug of coffee resting in the center console. The road stretched for miles beneath a clear autumn sky, lined with golden trees and fading farmland. She was not heading to a luxury event. She was not attending a military ceremony. She was simply trying to reach Raleigh before midnight. Folded carefully inside a leather case on the passenger seat was a collection of family keepsakes she planned to deliver to her father the next morning. The case contained photographs, handwritten letters, and a small military medal that had belonged to Angela's grandfather, a veteran who had taught her the value of dignity when she was still a little girl. Angela smiled whenever she thought about him. He used to tell her that character was revealed not when life was easy, but when life became unfair. Those words had stayed with her for decades. Around noon, she had stopped at a roadside diner outside Nashville. The waitress accidentally brought the wrong order, and Angela thanked her anyway before quietly requesting the correct meal. Later, when an elderly customer struggled to reach the door with a walker, Angela stepped forward and held it open. She never thought twice about such things. Kindness was not something she performed when people were watching. It was simply how she moved through the world. By late afternoon, clouds had drifted across the sky, and the temperature had dropped into the low 60s. Angela called her father from the road. He answered on the second ring. They talked about family, old memories, and the peach pie he insisted on baking for her arrival. Before ending the call, he reminded her to drive carefully. Angela promised she would. Then she continued east, unaware that the ordinary trip would soon become anything but ordinary. Back at the gas station, Ryan continued studying her. The crowd had grown larger now. Reflections from the police cruisers flashed across the fuel pumps in steady waves of red and blue. Angela stood quietly with her shoulders relaxed, neither defensive nor afraid. The confidence puzzled Ryan. Most people became nervous under pressure. Angela seemed different. Officer Ethan Cole returned from the SUV carrying a registration folder. He handed it to Ryan without saying a word. Ryan opened it and scanned the paperwork beneath the station lights. His forehead creased slightly. Every document appeared current. The registration matched the vehicle identification number. The insurance information was active. Nothing immediately suggested a problem. Yet Ryan was unwilling to let go of his first impression. Across the parking lot, the woman recording on her phone moved closer. The live video had already begun attracting viewers. Comments streamed across her screen faster than she could read them. Some questioned the situation. Others simply watched. None of them knew how significant the next few hours would become. Angela noticed Ryan flipping through the documents again. She could hear the faint rustle of paper over the distant sound of passing trucks. The cool breeze lifted the edge of her sweater. Then she glanced toward the highway and thought about Marcus. He was probably still working. He always worked late. Somewhere hundreds of miles away, beneath bright lights and secure hallways, her husband was finishing another long day. The thought brought her comfort. Not because of his position, not because of his authority, simply because he was Marcus, the same man who still left handwritten notes beside her coffee mug every morning, the same man who called whenever he knew she was traveling alone. Angela looked back at Ryan as he closed the folder. His expression remained skeptical. The evening air seemed heavier now. Something invisible was building beneath the surface of the moment. Neither of them knew it yet, but the quiet gas station on the edge of the highway was about to become the center of attention for people far beyond the county line. Ryan Walker had built his career on instincts, or at least that was what he told himself. For nearly 12 years he had worn a badge, patrolled highways, answered calls, and made split-second decisions. The problem was that instincts, when left unchecked, often became assumptions. Standing beneath the bright canopy lights, Ryan watched Angela Brooks with growing frustration. Nothing about the situation was unfolding the way he expected. Most people argued. Most people became defensive. Most people demanded explanations. Angela did none of those things. She simply stood there with quiet patience, her hands folded loosely in front of her while the cool night air moved gently through the parking lot. The calmness bothered him more than he wanted to admit. Officer Ethan Cole shifted beside him. "Everything checks out so far," he said quietly. Ryan glanced toward him. "So far." Ethan hesitated. "The registration is valid. Insurance is active. The vehicle is registered in her name." Ryan looked back at Angela. She met his eyes for only a moment before looking away toward the distant highway. The movement felt natural, almost casual. Nothing about her behavior suggested panic. Yet Ryan could not shake the feeling that something was missing. A few yards away, a white woman wearing a gray jacket stood near the convenience store entrance. Her name was Melissa Grant, the person who had made the original call. Earlier that evening, she had noticed Angela arriving in the dark SUV and immediately assumed something was wrong. The vehicle looked expensive. Angela did not fit the image Melissa had unconsciously created in her mind of who should be driving it. That assumption had traveled through a phone call and landed here beneath flashing patrol lights. Melissa crossed her arms and watched from a distance. She seemed less confident now than she had 20 minutes earlier. Ryan walked toward her. "Are you still certain this is the vehicle you reported?" Melissa glanced at Angela, then at the SUV. It looked suspicious. Ryan waited. "That is not what I asked." Melissa swallowed. "I thought it might be stolen." Thought. The word hung in the air. Not new. Not witnessed. Thought. Ryan felt a flicker of irritation. The crowd had grown larger. Several people continued filming. Headlights from passing cars swept across the station every few seconds, casting long shadows over the pavement. Somewhere behind him, a diesel engine rumbled through the darkness before fading into the distance. Ethan stepped closer. "Maybe we should wrap this up." Ryan did not answer immediately. Instead, he stared at the SUV once more. The polished exterior reflected the emergency lights in waves of red and blue. Then something caught his attention. A small parking permit attached to the lower corner of the windshield. Ryan narrowed his eyes. "What is that?" Ethan leaned closer. "Looks like some kind of government access permit." Ryan walked toward the vehicle. The permit sat behind the glass, partially obscured by reflection. He shined his flashlight across it. The seal looked official. Federal. Ryan felt a strange tightening in his chest. "Can you read it?" Ethan asked. Ryan shook his head. The glare prevented a clear view. Behind them, Angela remained still. She watched the officers examine the vehicle, but offered no interruption. No explanation. No attempt to influence what happened next. Her composure stood in sharp contrast to the growing uncertainty spreading through the scene. Ryan straightened and looked toward her again. For the first time that evening, doubt began pushing against his confidence. Not enough to change course. Not yet, but enough to make him uncomfortable. Angela noticed the shift immediately. Years of experience had taught her how to recognize the moment when certainty began giving way to questions. She could see it in Ryan's posture, in the way he no longer barked commands, in the way he kept looking back toward the vehicle. Somewhere deep in the distance, far beyond the county line, a phone began ringing inside a secure office. Then another, and another. The quiet chain of events had already started moving, even though no one at the gas station realized it yet. The uneasy feeling in Ryan Walker's chest should have been enough to make him step back and reassess the situation, but pride often speaks louder than caution. He closed the registration folder and handed it back to Ethan Cole. "Keep checking," he said. Ethan frowned. "Checking for what?" Ryan did not answer immediately. The question irritated him because he did not have a good answer. The paperwork was clean. The insurance was valid. The vehicle belonged to Angela Brooks. Yet something inside him refused to accept the evidence sitting directly in front of him. The crowd continued growing around the edge of the gas station lot. More phones appeared. More headlights rolled through the parking lot. Conversations blended into a low murmur beneath the steady buzz of the canopy lights. Angela stood exactly where she had been told to stand. She remained composed, her shoulders relaxed, her breathing steady. The cool night breeze carried the scent of wet pavement across the station. Ryan walked back toward her. "Where are you coming from?" he asked. "Tennessee," Angela replied. "And where are you headed?" "Raleigh." "Why?" Angela gave a small smile. "To visit my father." Ryan studied her face. He wanted inconsistency. He wanted hesitation. Instead, he found neither. Every answer arrived naturally. Every detail matched the documents he had already reviewed. Behind him, Ethan approached holding Angela's driver's license. "Everything matches," Ethan said quietly. Ryan glanced at the license and then at Angela. "Have you ever worked for the federal government?" The question surprised Ethan. It surprised Angela as well. She tilted her head slightly. "No." Ryan pointed toward the SUV. "Then why does your vehicle have a federal access permit?" Several people nearby immediately looked toward the windshield. Angela followed their gaze. Understanding crossed her face. "That permit does not belong to me." Ryan folded his arms. "Then explain it." Angela looked toward the vehicle for a moment. The reflections from the patrol lights danced across the glass. "It belongs to my husband." Ryan waited. Angela said nothing more. The silence stretched. "And what does your husband do?" Ryan asked. Angela hesitated. Not because she was afraid, but because she had spent years avoiding exactly these conversations. Marcus disliked attention. He disliked status being used as leverage. More than once he had reminded her that respect should never depend on titles. He works for the government, she finally said. Ryan let out a short laugh. Several members of the crowd exchanged glances. Even Ethan looked uncomfortable. That is pretty vague. Angela nodded. It is supposed to be. Ryan stared at her. The answer felt evasive even though part of him suspected it was not. Across the parking lot, Melissa Grant suddenly seemed far less certain than before. The confidence she carried when making the report had disappeared. She shifted her weight nervously and avoided eye contact with anyone filming. A pickup truck pulled into the station. The driver stepped out, noticed the scene, and immediately joined the growing audience. The live stream continued spreading online. Hundreds of viewers became thousands. Comments flooded the screen faster than the woman recording could follow. Then Ethan's radio crackled. Both officers looked down instantly. A dispatcher's voice came through. Unit 7, contact your supervisor immediately. Ryan grabbed the radio. For what? A brief pause followed. Supervisor requests immediate update on your current stop. Ryan frowned. That alone was unusual. Then the radio crackled again. Unit 7, confirm identity of individual involved. Ryan looked toward Angela. The crowd had gone strangely quiet. Even the sounds of traffic seemed more distant now. Angela Brooks, he replied. Another pause. Longer this time. Then the dispatcher returned, her voice noticeably different. More careful. More formal. Unit 7, remain on scene. Your supervisor is en route. Ryan lowered the radio slowly. Ethan looked at him. What is going on? Ryan did not know. But for the first time that night, the certainty he had carried into the gas station was beginning to crumble. Somewhere far beyond the county limits, phones were still ringing. Offices were still receiving calls. And events that had started with a single assumption were moving faster than anyone standing beneath those gas station lights could possibly imagine. The atmosphere at the gas station changed the moment the supervisor's name came over the radio. Nobody said it out loud, but everyone felt it. The easy confidence that had surrounded the stop only minutes earlier was gone. In its place came uncertainty. Ryan Walker slipped the radio back onto his shoulder and looked toward Angela Brooks again. She remained exactly where she had been standing, illuminated by the white canopy lights above. Her face showed neither anger nor satisfaction. If anything, she looked tired. The long drive, the unexpected delay, and the growing crowd were beginning to show in the slight tension around her eyes. Yet she continued to carry herself with quiet dignity. A black sedan rolled into the parking lot and stopped near the patrol vehicles. Lieutenant David Harper stepped out. He was in his early 50s, broad-shouldered, calm, and known throughout the department for asking questions before making conclusions. The moment he arrived, several officers instinctively straightened. Harper surveyed the scene without speaking. His gaze moved from the gathered crowd to the parked SUV and finally to Angela. What do we have? He asked. Ryan immediately launched into an explanation. He described the report, the suspected vehicle issue, and the ongoing investigation. Harper listened without interruption. When Ryan finished, the lieutenant extended his hand. Let me see the paperwork. Ryan passed over the registration folder. Harper opened it beneath the glow of the station lights. Seconds passed. Then another 10 seconds. His expression remained unreadable. Finally, he closed the folder. Everything appears valid. Ryan shifted slightly. We are still verifying a few things. Harper looked at him carefully. Such as, Ryan hesitated. For the first time all evening, he did not have a clear answer. Across the lot, the live stream continued. Thousands of viewers were now watching from across the country. Comments flashed continuously across the screen. Some questioned the situation. Others expressed concern. Many simply waited to see what would happen next. Harper approached Angela. His voice was respectful. Ma'am, I am Lieutenant Harper. I apologize for the inconvenience. Do you mind if I ask a few questions? Angela nodded. Of course. Harper spent several minutes speaking with her. The conversation was calm, professional, and remarkably ordinary. She explained her trip. She described visiting her father. She answered every question directly. When Harper finished, he thanked her. Then he stepped away and pulled Ryan aside. I am not seeing probable cause for continuing this. Ryan lowered his voice. Something feels off. Harper sighed quietly. Feelings are not evidence. Before Ryan could respond, dispatch interrupted again. This time the radio crackled with unusual urgency. Lieutenant Harper, please contact command immediately. Harper frowned. Command. Yes, sir. Immediate priority. The lieutenant walked several yards away and answered the call privately. As the conversation continued, his expression gradually changed. First confusion, then surprise, then something close to disbelief. When the call ended, he remained silent for several moments. The night air seemed suddenly colder. The distant sound of traffic echoed across the highway. Harper slowly returned to the group. Ryan immediately noticed the difference in his face. What happened? He asked. Harper looked at him, but did not answer right away. Instead, he glanced toward Angela, then toward the SUV, then back toward Ryan. We are no longer handling a routine vehicle stop, he said quietly. Ryan felt his stomach tighten. What does that mean? Harper took a slow breath. It means people at levels far above this department are now asking questions. Around them, nobody spoke. Even the crowd seemed to sense something important had shifted. Angela lowered her eyes briefly toward the wedding ring on her hand. The silver band reflected the flashing lights in tiny bursts of red and blue. Somewhere hundreds of miles away, inside secure government offices, conversations were accelerating. Names were being verified. Reports were being reviewed. And the chain reaction that began with a single assumption was now moving faster than anyone in the parking lot could stop. For the first time since the patrol cars arrived, nobody seemed eager to speak. The gas station had fallen into a strange silence, the kind that settles over a place when people sense they are standing in the middle of something larger than they understand. The flashing lights still painted the pavement in shifting colors, but even those felt less urgent now. Angela Brooks stood near the edge of the lot, looking beyond the rows of fuel pumps toward the dark ribbon of highway stretching into the night. Headlights drifted past in the distance like tiny stars moving across the horizon. The cool air brushed against her face. Somewhere nearby, a flag mounted on a tall pole fluttered softly in the wind. She wrapped her arms around herself and exhaled slowly. It had been a long day. The drive, the unexpected stop, the growing attention from strangers, all of it pressed against her thoughts. Yet what occupied her mind most was neither embarrassment nor anger. It was her father. She imagined him sitting in his favorite recliner with the television playing too loudly, waiting for her arrival the next morning. She pictured the old family photographs hanging in his hallway and the peach pie cooling on the kitchen counter. The image brought a faint smile to her face. Across the parking lot, Lieutenant Harper noticed it. He had expected frustration. Instead, he saw grace. That observation lingered with him. A person treated unfairly often had every reason to become bitter. Angela seemed determined not to surrender that part of herself. Near the convenience store entrance, several people lowered their phones. The excitement that had fueled the recordings was slowly giving way to curiosity and reflection. One elderly man removed his baseball cap and shook his head. A young mother quietly guided her children back toward her vehicle. The atmosphere felt different now, less like a spectacle, more like a lesson nobody had expected to receive. Ryan Walker stood several yards away, hands resting on his duty belt. For the first time all evening, he felt uncertain about every decision he had made. The confidence that normally guided him had dissolved into uncomfortable questions. He replayed the encounter in his mind, examining each assumption, each conclusion, each choice. The answers he found did not bring comfort. Above them, thin clouds drifted across the moon, softening the silver light falling over the highway. Angela glanced down at her wedding ring. The polished band reflected a brief flash of blue from a patrol car before returning to silver. Her thumb brushed gently across the engraving hidden. Inside, Marcus had chosen the inscription himself years earlier. Simple words. Quiet words. Words that mattered because they were lived rather than spoken. The memory steadied her. Her phone remained silent now, tucked safely inside her pocket. She knew Marcus had not heard anything yet. If he had, he would already be calling. That thought almost made her laugh. No matter how demanding his schedule became, he never ignored family. Never. A gust of wind carried the scent of rain once more. Somewhere far away, thunder rolled faintly across the horizon. The night seemed to pause and breathe. Then, in the distance, new headlights appeared. Not one vehicle. Several. Their beams moved steadily along the highway before taking the exit toward the gas station. Lieutenant Harper noticed them first. His eyes narrowed slightly. Ryan followed his gaze. The approaching vehicles traveled with calm purpose, neither rushing nor hesitating. Angela turned as well. The soft smile faded from her face, replaced by quiet recognition. The long wait was almost over. And within minutes, every person standing beneath those bright gas station lights would finally understand why phones had been ringing across offices hundreds of miles away. The approaching headlights grew brighter with every passing second until the vehicles finally turned into the gas station entrance. Conversations stopped completely. Even the people who had been whispering moments earlier fell silent. 3 black SUVs rolled across the parking lot in a slow, deliberate line. They were clean, unmarked, and impossible to ignore. Their headlights swept across the fuel pumps and reflected off the windows of the convenience store. Lieutenant Harper straightened instinctively. Ryan Walker felt a knot tighten in his stomach. Nothing about the arriving vehicles looked local. Nothing about them looked routine. The lead SUV came to a stop near the edge of the lot. The engine went quiet. For a brief moment, nobody moved. Then the driver's door opened. A man in a dark suit stepped out and scanned the area. Another followed. Then another. Their movements were calm and professional, but there was an unmistakable sense of purpose surrounding them. Harper took a slow breath. He had seen that kind of presence before. Federal. Serious. The crowd watched in complete silence. Several people lowered their phones without even realizing they had done it. The atmosphere had shifted again. Whatever this situation was, it had moved far beyond a simple misunderstanding at a gas station. Angela Brooks remained still. The wind brushed gently through her hair as she watched the vehicles arrive. There was no surprise on her face now, only recognition. One of the suited men approached Lieutenant Harper. A brief conversation followed. Nobody else could hear the words. Yet Ryan noticed the immediate change in Harper's posture. The lieutenant's eyes widened slightly before he glanced back toward Angela, then toward Ryan, then back toward the suited man. The realization seemed to land all at once. Nearby, Ethan Cole swallowed hard. "Ryan," he whispered, "something is very wrong." Ryan did not answer. His attention was fixed on the second SUV. The rear passenger door opened slowly. A tall man stepped out into the glow of the station lights. He looked to be in his early 60s, broad-shouldered, composed, and unmistakably accustomed to responsibility. Silver touched the edges of his close-cropped hair. His dark overcoat moved lightly in the breeze. The moment Lieutenant Harper saw him, his expression changed completely. So did the expression of one of the federal agents. Respect appeared instantly. The man walked forward with measured confidence. He did not hurry. He did not need to. The parking lot seemed to part around him naturally. Ryan stared. Something about the face felt familiar. Then memory connected with recognition. News interviews, military briefings, national broadcasts. The realization struck like a flash of light. General Marcus Brooks. 4 stars. One of the most respected military leaders in the country. Ryan felt the color drain from his face. Around the lot, murmurs spread through the crowd. People recognized him too. Some exchanged stunned looks. Others simply stood frozen. The live stream exploded with comments moving so quickly they became impossible to read. Marcus ignored all of it. He did not look toward the cameras. He did not acknowledge the crowd. His attention remained fixed on a single person, Angela. As he approached, her expression softened immediately. The tension she had carried throughout the evening eased from her shoulders. Marcus stopped in front of her and offered a small smile. "You all right?" he asked quietly. Angela nodded. "I am now." For a moment, the rest of the world seemed to disappear. The flashing lights, the crowd, the whispers, none of it mattered. Then Marcus gently took her hand. His eyes drifted briefly toward the officers before returning to her. He did not appear angry. He appeared disappointed. And somehow that felt far heavier. Ryan lowered his gaze. The assumptions that had brought everyone to this moment now stood exposed beneath the bright gas station lights for everyone to see. For several long seconds, nobody moved. The only sounds came from the distant highway and the faint rustle of wind moving through the gas station lot. General Marcus Brooks stood beside Angela, his hand resting gently over hers. The simple gesture seemed to steady the entire scene. He was a man accustomed to command, yet there was nothing intimidating about the way he looked at his wife. There was concern in his eyes. Respect. Relief. "I am sorry you had to deal with this," he said quietly. Angela offered a small smile. "I am fine." Marcus nodded once. He knew that answer. It was the same answer she gave whenever she chose strength over complaint. Lieutenant Harper approached carefully. His posture remained professional, but there was no mistaking the tension in his expression. "General Brooks," he said, "thank you for coming." Marcus extended his hand. "Lieutenant." The two men shook hands. Harper glanced briefly toward Angela. "Ma'am, I want to personally apologize for the inconvenience this evening." Angela looked at him kindly. "Thank you, Lieutenant." The sincerity in her response seemed to catch him off guard. She could have responded with anger. She could have demanded explanations. Instead, she offered grace. Nearby, Ryan Walker remained silent. The weight of the situation pressed heavily against him now. Every assumption he had made stood exposed. Every decision replayed endlessly in his mind. He watched as Marcus turned toward him. The crowd seemed to hold its breath. Ryan expected criticism. He expected a lecture. What he received instead was far more difficult. Marcus simply studied him for a moment. "Officer Walker," he said. Ryan swallowed. "Sir." Marcus glanced toward the gathering of people surrounding the station. Then toward Angela. Then back at Ryan. "My wife has traveled across this country with me for more than 20 years. His voice remained calm. "She has stood beside service members, military families, teachers, doctors, and community leaders. She has spent thousands of hours helping veterans and their families." Ryan lowered his eyes. Marcus continued. "What matters tonight is not who she is married to. What matters is that she deserved the same respect before anyone knew my name." The words landed with quiet force. No raised voice. No accusation. Just truth. Several people nearby nodded. Even Lieutenant Harper seemed affected by the statement. Ryan felt heat rise to his face. He wanted to explain himself. He wanted to defend his decisions. Yet every excuse sounded smaller than the reality standing in front of him. "You are right, sir," he said softly. Marcus studied him for another second before nodding. "Learn from it. Nothing more. No threats. No demands. Just 3 simple words." Somehow they carried more weight than any punishment Ryan could imagine. A federal agent approached Marcus and quietly informed him that everything had been verified and documented. Marcus thanked him. The agent stepped back. The crowd slowly began dispersing. Some returned to their vehicles. Others lowered their phones and walked away in thoughtful silence. The excitement that had drawn them there was gone. What remained was reflection. Angela looked around the lot one final time. The bright lights reflected off the pavement, turning small puddles into mirrors of silver and gold. The night felt calmer now, softer. The tension that had gripped the station for more than an hour was finally beginning to release. Marcus opened the passenger door of the lead SUV. Before getting inside, Angela paused and turned toward Ryan. He looked surprised when she addressed him directly. "Officer Walker." "Yes, ma'am." Angela smiled gently. "I hope the next person you meet receives the benefit of being known before being judged." Ryan stared at her. For a moment, he could not find words. Then he nodded. "I will remember that." Angela gave a final smile and stepped toward the waiting vehicle, leaving behind a lesson far more powerful than anyone had expected to find at a quiet gas station on an ordinary night. The black SUVs disappeared into the darkness of the highway, their taillights slowly shrinking until they became tiny red dots against the night. The gas station returned to silence. The crowd was gone now. The flashing patrol lights had been switched off. Only the steady white glow from the canopy remained, washing the pavement in soft light. A few paper receipts drifted across the concrete in the breeze. Somewhere near the edge of the lot, a flag rope tapped gently against a metal pole. Ordinary sounds had returned, yet nothing felt quite the same. Ryan Walker remained standing beside his patrol car long after everyone else had left. The night air felt cooler than before. He watched the empty road stretching beyond the station and replayed the evening over and over in his mind. Every assumption, every judgment, every opportunity he had missed to simply listen. For years he had believed experience gave him the ability to read people quickly. Tonight had shown him how dangerous that belief could become when certainty arrived before understanding. Lieutenant Harper approached quietly. Neither man spoke at first. They stood side by side looking toward the highway. Finally, Harper broke the silence. "You know what the hardest part of this job is?" Ryan shook his head. Harper slipped his hands into his coat pockets, remembering that every person we meet has a story we cannot see. The words lingered between them. Ryan nodded slowly. Across town, Angela and Marcus continued their journey east. The road stretched ahead beneath a sky filled with stars. Inside the vehicle, neither spoke for several minutes. The quiet felt comfortable, familiar. Marcus glanced toward his wife and smiled. Your father is probably worried by now. Angela laughed softly. He has probably called 3 times already. Marcus handed her his phone. Sure enough, 3 missed calls waited on the screen. Angela shook her head affectionately. That sounds like him. The simple moment eased the weight of the evening. They were not thinking about headlines. They were not thinking about authority or recognition. They were thinking about family, about home, about arriving safely. Several hours later, as dawn began painting the horizon with pale gold light, they pulled into her father's driveway. The porch light was still on. The front door opened before they even reached the steps. Her father stood there smiling, wearing an old sweater and holding a pie dish. Angela laughed as he wrapped her in a hug. The warmth of home washed away the last traces of the previous night. Far away, back at the station, morning sunlight eventually replaced the artificial glow of the canopy lights. Customers arrived. Fuel pumps clicked. Coffee brewed inside the store. To most people, it was just another day. Yet for a handful of individuals, something had changed. Melissa Grant would later think often about the assumptions that led her to make that call. Ethan Cole would remember how quickly facts could be overshadowed by appearances. Lieutenant Harper would continue teaching younger officers the importance of patience. And Ryan Walker would carry one sentence with him for the rest of his career. I hope the next person you meet receives the benefit of being known before being judged. Years later, he would still remember those words. Not because they came from someone connected to power. Not because they came from someone important. But because they came from someone who had every reason to respond with anger and chose grace instead. As the morning sun climbed higher above the trees, life moved forward. Cars traveled the highways. Families gathered around breakfast tables. The world continued as it always had. Yet somewhere beneath that ordinary rhythm remained a quiet reminder. Character reveals itself when power is available, but kindness is chosen. And on a cool night, beside a gas station off a lonely highway, that truth had spoken louder than any title ever could.